Sahara is a 2017 French/Canadian animated movie, which was released in theaters in its home country, but was released on Netflix in the United States, which was another candidate that was going to be on my worst 2017 animated movies list. So, back during my review of The Star,
which was the previous Sean's Yearly Reviews episode in production order,
I pointed out how Sahara was originally going to share the number 8 spot with that movie on that list in particular, which, looking back in hindsight, I think was a mistake to do because, well, The Star is completely harmless and it doesn't have any elements that are egregious. Meanwhile, Sahara does. But that'll be saved for later on in this review. But regardless, like what I stated during my review of The Star, this movie is not good. Now granted, this movie may not be as bad as either Rock Dog, Leap, The Boss Baby, or Spark a Space Tale, because I could see why someone would get something out of this movie, and from the reactions that I was able to see from people, they do seem to like this one for some reason, so this is more of a divided film, rather than something that I have an unpopular opinion on, like Rock Dog or 9. But this film has literally nothing going for it. So, what is the premise of this film? This film revolves around a snake named Ajar and a scorpion named Pit. Ajar decides to roll around in this green stuff to pretend to be a green snake, so he could sneak into an oasis and live there. But he ends up meeting an actual green snake named Eva, who is basically the Disney princess who wants more outside of her little bubble, but her dad forbids her from going outside of the oasis. But after going down a waterfall, Eva gets captured, leading Ajar and Pit, alongside Eva's brother Gary, to basically go out and save her as she ends up making new friends. So, the best way to sum up the plot of this movie is that imagine taking the characters in Aladdin and basically put them into the plot of Finding Nemo. That is literally what this movie does. I mean, the main character named Ajar, alongside his friend Pit, basically steals food from any human that he comes across, and Eva is basically forbidden from going outside. And just like Finding Nemo, one of the main characters that we're supposed to care about is abducted because she disobeyed her father by going out on her own. Though, the problem that this movie has is not that it has similarities to Aladdin or Finding Nemo. The problem is that the pieces just don't go together at all. Like, this movie has the same structure as the Pixar film, but it has that one piece which makes the entire thing collapse. Say, did you ever hear of a romance story where the character that the protagonist falls in love with is captured right away, leading them to be split apart for most of the movie? Because I sure haven't. In spite of the fact that Ajar and Eva literally just met, they still get together at the end of the movie, in spite of the fact that they didn't even interact that long before they got split apart entirely. Reminder, Ajar is supposed to be the Aladdin, while Eva is supposed to be the Jasmine. In Aladdin, before both of them even fell in love, they had several sequences where they bonded with each other, so it was very believable as to why Aladdin and Jasmine wanted to get together with each other. Ajar and Eva get together because the plot demands it, not because they actually got a chance to bond with each other. And now that I think about it more, why didn't they just have Ajar and Eva get captured and then have Pit go on a buddy road trip with Gary?
even though he's awful for reasons I'll get to later.
It would have served the exact same purpose as a result, because all of what Ajar does and say in this movie could have also been done by Pit. That way we could have been given more time to see Ajar and Eva bond together. Wanna know why this worked more on Finding Nemo? Nemo got abducted in that movie not too long after he got into a fight with Marlin. So over the course of that film, Marlin had to learn to not let fear cloud up his judgments, as opposed to getting development for a relationship taken away from the audience, which is what this movie does. And in spite of the fact that it's been years since I last watched Finding Nemo, I remember more about the other fishes that Nemo met than these characters.
Even though I only watched this movie once beforehand.
Because all of them are that forgettable, and they are not given enough screen time to make their presence memorable. And rewatching the movie after all of these years, all of them can be described by their one trait. The leader snake, the handsome snake that tries to flirt with Eva.
In spite of a huge age gap that is problematic, given that he says that he was in the dance group for 11 years.
The twin snakes that are hyperactive, and the seductive snake that wants Eva gone. And unlike in Finding Nemo, Nemo, where the characters being fish was integral to the plot, I have to ask this question now. Why are the characters in this movie snakes and not humans? Because outside of the sequence where Ajar, Pitt, and Gary are in the car and the other humans basically get terrified, you could basically change the characters into humans and nothing would really change at all. This includes the way that they'd be able to get the snakes to any given location, given that camels can apparently transport a wagon, and the snakes could also basically be changed into dancers and that's it. But then when going through this movie, I can honestly see why they changed them into snakes, because you cannot get away with a lot of this content if they were humans, in more ways than just the fact that the sequences where Gary is addicted to pollen being a metaphor for drugs. There's a sequence where the security birds try to outright kill Ajar and Pitt when they trespass into the oasis, and considering the fact that this movie is literally set in the Sahara Desert, if you've seen how dancers are like there, you'd know. But why do I really not like this movie exactly? Well, a lot like Planet 51, the problem that Sahara has is that it's very bland and forgettable, and without this one aspect of the film, it might have gotten a 5 out of 10, but it sits where it is now because of one aspect of the film, and that is Gary, quite possibly one of the most insufferable characters that you'll ever come across in an animated film. So, did you like Johnny from Hotel Transylvania? I could assume not. So, what executive thought that it was a wise decision to just take that exact same character and just make him into a snake? Some people argued that even he was pushing it at times, but even in Hotel Transylvania, you could make the defense that all of what Johnny did was completely harmless. Some could say he was annoying because of how cool and hip he tried to be, but he never did any harm to the other characters. And the moments where he was pushed to be dislikable was never because of him by himself, it was more because of bad writing showcased in Transformania. That's all that Gary does throughout this entire film. He serves no other purpose to this movie other than constantly spouting out pop culture references, which makes zero sense given the location that this movie is supposed to be set in. How does Gary even know what pizza is? Or who Batman and Robin are? If he spent most of his life in an oasis? But no, the worst part of him is in regards to two things in particular. He's apathetic towards his sister in multiple sequences for no reason whatsoever. Like, I get that she hit him at the beginning of the movie, but he didn't even seem to care anyways. But he has resentment towards her for no reason, and he's literally just a scrappy do. Basically getting Ajar and Pitt into trouble throughout the entire movie, making me question why he was even here to begin with. Yeah, I get that in Finding Nemo, you could argue that Dory also caused issues for Marlin, but what made Dory an endearing character was that she had an excuse, because she has a disability that causes her to constantly forget things. And you do get the impression that she didn't mean to cause problems for Marlin, because she truly does care about those around her. Gary is very much aware of what he's doing throughout the entire movie, meaning that he gets zero excuse at all. And why is he acting like this throughout the film? It's because Ajar and Pitt dragged him along in their journey, despite the fact that they did this because Eva is his sister, and they were also going to get killed if they didn't do this. So this tells me that Gary is very much aware of the problems that he's causing to Ajar and Pitt, and he doesn't care a single bit. And despite the fact that the other characters are very much aware that this guy is nothing but a nuisance, the movie continually has him being a nuisance anyway. There is a saying that we have for this: what I'm doing is wrong, I know it's wrong, but I'm gonna do it anyway. One of the only good things that I could say about this movie is its animation. Now, I know I recently got onto a lot of shows and movies for how they handled their animation with the cel-shaded 2D CGI because they often look awkward and unappealing when not handled right, especially in regards to Tom and Jerry the Movie 2021 and Smurfs 2025, but Sahara actually handled this very well. Granted, it's not the Spider-Verse movies, but it's executed well enough to not become a distraction because the animation feels polished enough to where it almost feels like a regular CGI film, but stylized enough to feel unique. The best moment personally comes from the music video while Eva was joining the dance with the other snakes, where it feels incredibly psychedelic and even switches animation styles. To the point where, if I'm being honest, I think that this is where most of the work in the film was put into, as that was prioritized over the story and characters, given that it's just Finding Nemo but with snakes. it. And all the characters except for Gary are either bland or add literally nothing to the film, which is honestly a big shame when thinking about it, because when I first heard of this movie back in 2017, I thought that this movie would have been at least good, given that I heard good things going into it, only to get this as a result. But alas, this movie is the definition of being a movie that is style over substance.
Coming up next, it's
Hero Time!
Ben 10 versus the Universe, the movie. Coming soon, only on your Cartoon Network.
Everything